Meeting to order. If you could all rise for the moment of silence, please. Thank you. If you could face a flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Do the roll call of council persons, please.
Lehman. Here. Kodak.
Here.
Cassidy.
Here.
Baker.
Here.
Hall.
Here.
Mendoza. Here. Lake.
Here.
All right, we're all here. Minutes of the previous meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Mendoza, a second by Baker to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Lehman. Yes. Baker.
Yes.
Kodak.
Yes.
Cassidy.
Yes.
Hall.
Yes.
Mendoza. Yes. Lake.
Yes.
All right, that carries. Communications?
I have none.
All right, we'll move into the report of committees. Finance Committee.
Finance Committee met this evening at 5:30 p.m. Finance Director let us know that 2024 is closed, although reports have not yet been generated. They should be populated later this week. They're working on 1099s and W-2s also, hopefully for the end of this week. He also updated us that the ODOT project of 23, the city's share is going to be $933,000. Those funds will need to be deposited into escrow, and that will be done within the next week as well. He was asked to provide an explanation of the compensation structure related to the UDAC revolving loan fund, and he did so. Next meeting will be Tuesday, February 18th at 5:30 p.m. in council chambers.
Thank you very much. Public Affairs Committee.
Public Affairs Committee met this evening and finalized plans to host a Convos with Council event at the McLean Room in the Fostoria Memorial Library on Saturday, March 1st at 11 a.m. All members of the public, including council, are invited to this informal greet and meet. Wood County Plays is hosting a fundraiser for the all-inclusive Fostoria Playground this Saturday, January 25th, from 5:30 to 10 p.m. at Stacy's Place. All are welcome to attend. Tickets can be purchased online. The Public Affairs Committee will meet again. The Public Affairs Committee does not have any further meetings scheduled at this time. Thank you.
Law and Ordinance Committee.
Law and Ordinance Committee met this evening with no new business, but was presented with a request for new legislation considering lights being a nuisance, which will be researched further before deciding how to proceed. The Law and Ordinance Committee will meet again on Tuesday, February 18th at 5:15 p.m. here in council chambers.
Very much. Report of officers. Before I continue, I just wanted to give you an update. The mayor will be back at the next council meeting. The Safety Service Director is on an extended leave at this point, and the mayor will have more to say at the next meeting, probably finding an interim for just a short temporary period of time. And so that's kind of our small report on that this evening, and we'll move right to the Director of Law.
Thank you. In the old business, the CRA legislation needs to remain tabled as I have yet to hear an update from the school board. And in the new business, as I believe was discussed in the Finance Committee meeting, the ODOT legislations, both of those will need to be passed as an emergency tonight with the 3 reading rule suspended, just based on timelines that need to be met. I believe the deadline for those is February 7th, so that would be before, I believe, before our next meeting.
The timeline is February 7th. It's not before our next meeting. Our concern, though, is if we don't pass it at this meeting and we have weather or somebody ends up sick and we can't pass it, suspending the 3 reading rule, we would be not meeting the bid deadlines that ODOT's set out.
That's all I have.
So on the agenda, you're looking at in new business, the very first item, adjusting permanent appropriations would need the 3 reading rule suspended. The authorizing the mayor to enter into the ODOT contract, which is the third one down, and then the one right below that for the escrow agreement would all need to be passed with the 3 reading rule suspended. Please.
And do you have any more for your report then?
Just a couple of items. Rita, the tax authority who manages our income taxes, did send out to our community letters to anybody who has not filed their 2018 through 2022 income tax return. I wanted council to be aware in case you get questions. A couple of things to note. If somebody retires, they're no longer required to file income tax returns with the city as long as they do not have any earned income. However, they need to let Rita or the city know, otherwise they continue as active on the income tax list. So that is some of those letters. The other thing is if you work out of town and your employer withholds Fostoria income tax on your W-2, but you work out of town and live in the city, you still need to file a return because you work outside of the city. So that is not an exemption. So those are the 2 primary reasons people are getting letters for not filing between 2018 and 2022. So I just wanted to make sure council was aware of that in case you get stopped and asked questions. Another item just to note, we do have a leak in a water line underneath the railroad tracks, and I can't tell you where, but I wanted to let council know that we're in the process of assessing what that's going to cost in talking with our water distribution superintendent. She's telling me it's realistically going to be between $150,000 and $200,000, which is about 2/3 of our repair and maintenance budget for the year. So just a heads up that that's out there. They're getting their arms around it. It's not a huge leak, but it's big enough that the railroad has noted it, and it is something that does need to get addressed. So that's hanging out there. Outside of that, I don't have anything else to report.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Finance Director, if I may, you said under new business, the first listed item, the third listed item, and which other item needs to be suspended?
So if you have the agenda that came out last, which would have been about 4 o'clock today, it would have been,
I probably don't have that one.
yeah.
I have the,
So you have the ODOT contract, and then you probably have enacting Chapter 946 right below it on your agenda.
yes.
Yeah, so you're missing, there's a revised agenda that came out that had the
Okay, so it's
escrow
after
agreement.
that,
Yes, yep.
between those 2.
Yep.
Thank you.
And just so you know, that agenda issue was mine, not our council clerk, so.
Well, I guess,
And mine.
I guess
Thank you.
It's also mine.
Thank you both.
to follow up on that statement, besides worrying about not having a quorum, it's still only a first reading, but you're wanting us to suspend it.
If we can suspend the 3 reading rule, please.
And the reason the forethought wasn't there to present it to council prior.
No, so what happens is we got the information from ODOT here in January.
Okay.
So Eric just met with ODOT, I want to say like January 7th or 8th. And so they've done their work and now they're on a short timeline and they want to release bids February 7th so they can have them back by the end of February. So their delay makes our, yeah,
To our process.
you got it.
Gotcha.
Thank you very much. At this time, we'll move into the public portion. This evening, we had one person on the agenda, and that's Jameson Bottomer, the Assistant Superintendent of the Wastewater Treatment Plant. I'd like to come up and address council. We'd appreciate it. Thanks.
Hi, guys. I'm here talking about the MS4, which is the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. There's, I believe, 3 ordinances on here for new readings. It's something that we don't have a department that is overseeing that right now, so there's multiple departments that are looking into what we need to get done for this. The ordinances are the first thing that we just had a review done by the state. little history. This was the MS4s were enacted in the early 2000s. There's phase one, phase two. Cities over 100,000 are phase one. Cities 50,000 or more are phase two. And then anything designated by the state is a phase two. We're one of those communities that's a phase two, even though we don't have 50,000 residents. So it's something that the state, basically the federal government passed legislation stating that you had to oversee these MS4 storm sewers. The states came in and said they don't have the manpower to oversee them, so they gave us the ability, or as a city, they gave us the right to come in. We have to pass these ordinances and take care of anything that goes on with the storm sewers. So we have to treat them. We have to inspect them. It's not just the sewers themselves, but it's also construction, post-construction, pre-construction, all the storm stuff that, stuff like with Casey's building right now, having silt fences around, stuff like that. It's stuff that we're working on as different departments. So the ordinances give us the teeth to go out and say, hey, you can't do this or that. And so that's why we need them in place. Outside of that, are there any questions as to what the MS4 is for, or what the city needs to do on the state's behalf?
Any questions?
So, yeah, so this does not have anything to do with our EPA
So it's a separate
mandate.
It's through the EPA, but it's a separate division of the EPA groundwater, and they are the MS4 is its own NPDES permit, which the wastewater treatment has a city NPDES permit because we discharge right into the East Branch Portage River. So all the storm sewers that discharge out into the different waters of the state, we have to have a permit for that. And then there's certain portions of the city that have to have SWIP plans. There's just stormwater protection plans. Our plant, we have to have our own within our own permit. Then we have to have ones for the street garage, the compost pile, the airport, and that's stuff that we're going to be working on in the first quarter of this year. But the ordinances are the backbone to what we need in place to set up a lot of what we can and cannot do. If that helps.
Part of that is preparing for the high capacity type rains that we get. Is that not right? And some of the
So
runoff?
these are separate storm sewers. So these have nothing to do with our sanitary system. These would be separate. So our city has 69% combined sewers and 31% separated storm sewers. So this is strictly focused on just the separated storm sewers in the community. And we only have a few trunks that discharge out into the river. So if it's coming, like say if you live alongside the East Branch Portage River and you have a drainage tile that dumps directly into the river, the city is not responsible for that particular storm sewer, but we have ones coming down Park Avenue that dump out under the bridge right there. And that is the city's responsibility. So we have to clean those. We have to monitor those, and we have to go out and monitor for water is dumping out when it's not raining, and then do investigations on, because there shouldn't be any water in those systems at that time. So it's a whole nother department basically that the state wants us to have and take care of.
Do you have the manpower to be able to do this?
We're working on that. Yes and no. Well, we're working our way through it. Getting the ordinances and the SWIP plans in place is going to be special projects for people outside of our department, engineering or something like that. They'll get that taken care of. And then once the ordinances are in place and we get some of the plans in place, then we would have the ability to go out and do what we need to do for the rest of it. Between my department and sewer collection and water distribution will handle some of it as well.
Are we able to email you if we have any other questions?
Yeah, absolutely. We just did some training with all of the staff, the city, or not all the staff, but like 3 departments here in December. It's something that we have to do. Outreach with the community that we'll be putting stuff on. That's also part of the ordinances saying, hey, this is what we have to put a plan together for that, and we're working on that. We've put together, so we had our inspection, and we had some violations that they aren't going to fine us for. They just said, hey, you guys have to get this in place. Ordinances are a big one. Said you guys have to have the infrastructure in place. If we don't do what they ask us to do, then they could come down and fine us. We sent them out a report of the violations of how we want to fix all of them and have it done by June 30th, I think is what we put on our date for that. So there's no problem for us to get that done, but the ordinances are kind of the key and the backbone for us to get that done. So,
Thank you.
yep.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much for your
Yep.
time.
No problem.
We will open up to anyone else from the public that'd like to address council on council-related matters, and we ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing none, we'll move into old business. The first ordinance will remain tabled, so we won't read that one today. Start with the resolution for disposal of property.
A resolution authorizing the disposal of personal property, motor vehicles, road machinery, equipment, tools, or supplies which are not needed for public use or are obsolete or unfit to be sold by internet auction in calendar year 2025 and declaring an emergency to exist.
That is the second reading of that ordinance, or that resolution.
An ordinance to authorize, direct, and empower the Director of Finance to enter into an administrative agreement with the Fostoria Economic Development Corporation of Fostoria, Ohio, concerning the administration and management of the CDBG and UDAG revolving loan funds and declaring an emergency to exist.
That was the second reading of that ordinance. That concludes old business. We'll move into new business.
An ordinance adopting and amending ordinance number 2024-105, permanent 2025 appropriations by appropriating from unappropriated funds in the general fund and capital infrastructure fund and transferring funds from the general fund to the capital infrastructure fund and declaring an emergency to exist.
Move to suspend the 3 reading rule on 3 separate occasions.
Second,
We have a motion by Lehman, a second by Cassidy to suspend the 3 reading rule. Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Lehman,
Yes.
Cassidy,
yes.
Podak,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Mendoza,
Yes.
Lake.
Yes.
The 3 reading rule has been waived.
Move to adopt.
Second.
We have a motion by Lake, second by Hall to adopt. Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Lehman,
Yes.
Podak,
Yes.
Cassidy,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Mendoza,
Yes.
Lake.
Yes.
That passes. It becomes ordinance number 2025-01.
An ordinance establishing the position, responsibilities, and qualifications for the position of full-time water treatment plant lead operator for the city of Fostoria, Ohio, and declaring an emergency to exist.
That is the first reading of that ordinance.
An ordinance to authorize, direct, and empower the mayor and the director of finance to enter into an escrow agreement for highway improvement with the Ohio Department of Transportation and Sutton Bank of Attica, Ohio, as provided in said attachment.
I think we
Move
got
to
those.
suspend the 3 reading rule on 3 separate occasions.
Second.
Right, just a moment.
Are they out of order?
I think so. I have, on my agenda, I have authorizing the mayor on behalf of the city to do an LPA.
Oh, it's fine. No.
Does it matter what order these get?
From a technical standpoint.
We have to do the first one first, and
This one first, yes. Matters in the whole scheme of things.
Both things has the same day, so it's okay.
okay, so remind me the motion on the, we're on the escrow agreement for the thing. We kind of skipped one in the new business section according to the agenda. So we're on the escrow agreement, and I believe I heard Lehman
Yes.
make the motion. I did not get who seconded it.
I did.
It was Baker. Okay. All right, we have a motion by Lehman, a second by Baker to suspend the 3 reading rule on the escrow agreement ordinance. Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Lehman,
Yes.
Podak,
Yes.
Cassidy,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Mendoza,
Yes.
Lake.
Yes.
All right, the 3 reading rule has been suspended.
Move to adopt.
Second.
We have a motion by Cassidy, a second by Podak. Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Lehman,
Yes.
Podak,
Yes.
Cassidy,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Mendoza,
Yes.
Lake.
Yes.
That carries. It's ordinance number 2025-02. And then we'll backtrack to the authorizing the mayor for the LPA.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor on behalf of the city of Fostoria, Ohio, hereinafter referred to as the local public agency, LPA, to execute a contract with the Ohio Department of Transportation, providing for the payment for described resurfacing projects and declaring an emergency to exist.
Move to suspend the three reading rule on three separate occasions.
Second.
We have a motion by Hall, a second by Cassidy to suspend the three reading rule on three separate occasions. Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Lehman,
Yes.
Hodak,
Yes.
Cassidy,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Mendoza,
Yes.
Lake.
Yes.
Three reading rule has been waived.
Move to adopt. Second.
We have a motion by Lake, a second by Baker to adopt. Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Lehman,
Yes.
Hodak,
Yes.
Cassidy,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Mendoza,
Yes.
Lake.
Yes.
All right, that becomes ordinance number 2025-03.
An ordinance enacting new chapter 946 of the codified ordinances of the city of Fostoria, Ohio, entitled Illicit Discharge and Illegal Connection Control, and declaring an emergency to exist.
That is the first reading of that ordinance.
An ordinance enacting new chapter 947 of the codified ordinances of the city of Fostoria, Ohio, entitled Erosion and Sediment Control, and declaring an emergency to exist.
The first reading of that ordinance.
An ordinance enacting new chapter 948 of the codified ordinances of the city of Fostoria, Ohio, entitled Comprehensive Stormwater Management, and declaring an emergency to exist.
The first reading of that ordinance.
An ordinance amending chapter 1163 of the codified ordinances of the city of Fostoria, Ohio, entitled Required Improvements.
The first reading of that ordinance.
An ordinance amending chapter 1164 of the codified ordinances of the city of Fostoria, Ohio, entitled Stormwater Facilities, relating to reference to new chapter 947.
That is the first reading of that ordinance and concludes new business. Is there any need to go into executive session this evening? Seeing none, is there any miscellaneous business this evening? Also seeing none, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Cassidy, a second by Mendoza to adjourn. Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Lehman,
Yes.
Podak,
Yes.
Cassidy,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Mendoza, Lake.
Yes.
We are adjourned at 6:24 PM.